Hi, my name is Allison, and this is the Colorworkyarn podcast. This is episode 8 after a long hiatus. I am back and plan to do more regular podcasting. So I wanted to give you kind of the reason why I was gone for a while, and that is my husband and I recently, or not so recently, about a year ago now, purchased our first home together. And this is, it's been really a lot of fun getting this house into our home. It's a home that was built in 1923, so it has a lot of old charm with rich wood, which I imagine you can see some behind me here. And there are parts that have been really well maintained over the years, and other parts that really need some love. So my husband James and I have really been enjoying kind of doing that together and making improvements. The most recent development that we did was we replaced all of the windows in the home. So when we purchased the home, they had broken seals. The air had gotten in between the panes of the windows as well as moisture. So all of the windows needed to be replaced. That was 20 windows in the house. We actually replaced 14 of them. And it's been such a nice improvement, and it really kind of invigorates that feeling of wanting to improve things together and make this house ours. We have been really mindful of the furniture that we're bringing into the home. Like I mentioned, the home's from the 20s, so not all of our furniture is antique or anything, certainly, but a lot of it has a story behind it. It was previously owned, or something that James can restore, or something like that. We really enjoy the process of, just similar to crafting, it's the slow lifestyle of just finding beauty in things that maybe others don't. So that process has really been keeping my attention, and I really wanted to be in a place where I could dedicate the right amount of time to podcasting again. So I feel as though I'm there. I have many projects to share with you through this past time that I've been away. I'm not going to show them all today. I'm going to kind of space them out so I can show just a few, otherwise this would be quite a lengthy podcast. I see my kitty, Anastasia. We have 2 cats, Anastasia and Dimitri, and you might hear them in the background. Anastasia is being rather cute right now. She is camera shy, or I bring her on. So the first thing I wanted to share with you is actually a yarn that was new to me, that I made a project with, and it was kind of my first introduction into the rustic wool that's really coming back with a vengeance these days. So this is Hirose Yarn's Watershed in the color Monarch. And this is that. It's like this beautiful rust color, rusty terracotta color. And it really is, let's see, 100% pure virgin wool. And it's just a beautiful yarn. It's amazing to me how lofty and airy this yarn feels. And consequently, any project that's made with it really has a lightness that you don't necessarily get with a superwash yarn. So I really enjoyed what I made with that. What I ended up making was actually kind of a modified version of the Ronan sweater by Andrea Mowry. That sweater, true to pattern, has really low armholes. So like the armholes are quite large, and so then when you hold your arm out to the side, it connects low down onto the arm. I think there's a name for that, but I'm not sure what it is. But I made this sweater for someone else who didn't like that feature, but they liked the rest of the brioche shawl collar and things like that. So I actually shortened the depth of the armhole and made it more of a traditional raglan, and ended up really nicely, but it used a lot of yarn. So I don't remember exactly how many skeins I used for that, but I was worried when I first started knitting that it would be too heavy and just kind of pull and be too drapey, but due to the light and airy quality of this yarn, that didn't happen. It's definitely a warm piece and a heavy, not heavy, it's just warm. So I highly recommend this yarn. Next, I have a work in progress to share with you, and it is a sock, the start of one anyway. And this is just a vanilla sock, and it's being made for a man's size 12 foot. So it's a lot of knitting for a sock. I did a 72 stitch cast on, and the long tail cast on is what I used to start this, with 2x2 rib and quite a long leg of the sock, fish lips kiss heel, and then I'll probably do a rounded toe. This is the Return to Hogwarts yarn by A Homespun House. This was a surprise colorway of, I think it was from last year. I'm not entirely sure, but I want to say it was last year. Again, Return to Hogwarts, which is one of her clubs that she does. I think she does a few. It's Molly of A Homespun House, and she does a few Hogwarts inspired yarn clubs. So she does like a Return to Hogwarts, Christmas at Hogwarts, and I think she just started a Halloween one too, which is pretty fun. So anyway, that's what this knits up like. And when I saw the yarn, sorry, I have mohair on, and it's all up in my nose. Anyway, when I saw this yarn, it reminded me of the Chicago Bears, and the person I'm knitting these socks for is a huge Chicago Bears fan. So it's kind of an interpretation on Chicago Bears. These are going to be a Christmas gift for, it's actually my stepfather, Jim. These are going to be his Christmas socks for his love of Chicago Bears. Moving into finished objects, the first one is what I'm wearing. This is the Ranunculus sweater by Knit Cafe Midori, and it is my first project stranding with mohair. So I really love it. I love the product, I love the process of knitting it, and I think this will be kind of a mainstay in my wardrobe this winter. It really is actually quite warm. It's a little too warm to be wearing this right now, but anything for the podcast, right? This sweater is knit top down, so you start here with a tubular cast on, and then you do a twisted rib and the yoke of the sweater. And the yoke of the sweater is kind of the bulk of the knitting, so it goes really quickly because the yoke of the sweater uses really interesting stitches and eyelets, and I think it really looks nice. I really enjoy it. From there, it's, like any top-down construction, you separate for the sleeves and knit the body, and that's where my modifications came into play. So the pattern itself has a short sleeve version and a long sleeve version. And the short sleeve actually has just a rolled edge. And I wanted to have a little bit more of a finished edge. So I added, I believe, just 2 rows of stockinette stitch on the sleeves, and then 5 rows of twisted rib 1x1 ribbing. And I really like the look of that, especially I think it just hits my arm at a nice place rather than the rolled edge. I did go down a needle size as well, so because of that it's a little bit less ease in this pattern than what is written, or there's less ease in my sweater than what's written in the pattern. So with that in mind, I knew that my sleeves would be just a little bit shorter as well. So that's another reason why I included the ribbing on the sleeve. For the body, again, it's kind of easily modified because you're going top down, so you can kind of try it on as you go and see how long you want the body of the sweater to be. So I ended up knitting 5 inches of stockinette and then finishing with 2 inches of twisted rib at the bottom. And it hits me just above my belly button, actually, so it's quite cropped. But I like the look of it either over dresses or with a high-waisted skirt or high-waisted pants. I think it really is a flattering place to hit for my body type. So very excited about this sweater, so much so that my second finished object is the same pattern. It's much different yarn though, so it really does feel like quite a different project. This is a lace weight yarn. I didn't say this is a fingering weight yarn, and actually it's my yarn as well. It's Colorworkyarn in the color Pearl, the Pearl colorway. So that's in our merino base, and then it's stranded with the mohair base as well. So this version is made with a very special yarn. It was a gift from my husband when he and his brother went to Iceland. And I was not on this trip, and I was experiencing a little bit of just a little jealousy because they were going to the knitting capital, all of this wonderful rustic wool and just the knitting culture. I would love to experience that. So my husband was so sweet and brought several skeins of yarn back for me. I think he brought this yarn that I knit the sweater out of, and some Lopi skeins, and one other that is also a beautiful lamb's wool. So this is a lace weight version of the same sweater, and because of that, I'm not sure you're going to be able to get a whole lot of the detail on camera. When it shines most is when I have like a tank top underneath this sweater. Because it's a lace weight, it's kind of a gauzy fabric. Like you can really see through the fabric when it's single-sided. So it's like when it's on my skin, you would be able to see my body through it if I didn't have another shirt. So typically I would wear like a black tank top underneath this, and that really allows the patterning on the yoke to come through quite nicely. Same modifications were made on this sweater, so I did the ribbing on the sleeves as well as on the bottom, although I do think the pattern calls for ribbing on the bottom, but same measurements, 5 inches of knitting and stockinette on the body, 2 inches of ribbing on the bottom. And between the two of these, I am set. I originally didn't find myself a fan of purple, but here I am in these different tones of purple. This is a little more pinky gray, but I really, really love the outcome of both of these sweaters. My last finished object to share with you is actually no longer in my possession. It was I gifted it off to its new owner, and the person I made this for is a friend of mine who is into pottery, and we decided to do a handcraft swap. So she made me a beautiful pottery gift that I will show in a later podcast, and I made her the Sweet Soul Shawl by Tamy Gore. I love Tamy Gore. I love all things Tamy Gore, actually. I think she writes patterns beautifully. They're very clear. They're very just all information that you could possibly need to make one of her projects are very clearly explained in a pattern, which I really appreciate. I mean, a pattern is something that you purchase, so if there's some ambiguity or just something that was maybe left out in a pattern, that can be quite frustrating, especially for someone who may not have the knowledge on how to overcome that problem. So I really, really love knitting Tamy Gore's patterns. And this one in particular I'll insert pictures here so you can see kind of what the shawl looks like and what my project looked like. But it had baubles throughout, and I would say that I don't know if I'm doing baubles incorrectly. I don't think so, because I actually looked up a YouTube video on how to make baubles, and so I'm following the stitch pattern, but for some reason my baubles kind of lay flat, not flat, but almost flat with the fabric. They don't really like bounce up like you would see a bauble typically do. So I don't know if that's kind of a tension problem, or I have no idea. If I could fix it, I would have fixed that. So if you have any bauble tips, pass them along. But aside from that, and even with that, I'm really pleased with the end of this project. I think it turned out really beautifully. I loved the shape and the size of the shawl, and I think that my friend will really enjoy it when she receives it. I knit it out of Colorworkyarn in the Colin colorway, as well as in undyed natural tweed base. The last thing I have to share with you are some yarns that are currently in my shop. You can find my shop on Etsy, and I will link below a link to my shop if you're interested in seeing some more colorways. The first feature I have today is a new colorway called Archie. Now, Archie features like this really beautiful and rich, like Caribbean blue color, contrasted by this kind of gunmetal gray color, which is really, really quite nice. I'm really, really excited about this colorway, and all of my yarns, if you're not familiar, are named after people, and either people in my life or relevant people in pop culture. This is in honor of Archie, the Prince of Meghan and Harry. My sister is very fond of the royal family, so she thought it only appropriate that I knit a colorway in his honor. The other colorway that I have to share with you today is called Joni. And Joni is in this rich plum with little pops of chartreusey green, just subtle speckling. Subtle speckles are kind of my love with yarn. So I love tonals with subtle speckles, and I think this really does that quite nicely. This is on a gold stellina base, fingering weight, and Archie is on a fingering weight mohair and silk, and it's quite a few yards. I'm not exactly sure how many yards are in this skein, but that is why it's such a big plump skein. These colors and more are available in the shop, again over on Etsy, and I believe that's all that I have for you today. I thank you so much for tuning in and giving me a chance if this is your first time viewing. Again, you can find me on Instagram at Colorworkyarn, as well as Ravelry. I intend to be more regular with this podcast, so I would love to hear from you either via Instagram or here on YouTube. You can leave a comment and let me know what you think. Let me know what you're knitting. I'd love to hear from you. And thank you again. Bye. You can hear some crinkling again. My cat found her favorite toy, so that she just wants to be involved. Yana, you were quiet all day. What's your problem? Here she goes. Anastasia has left the room.